Okay, so for those new in the room, my name is John Fortune. I'm the head analyst at Ethical Trading Institute. And what we're going to do today is we're just going to have a look at something which we call the weekly fundamental assessment, which is where we just plot the fundamentals into a spreadsheet just so we can see when and where and of what importance we have the fundamental announcements coming up this week. And then that way we can adapt our trading around those fundamentals. Namely, if we don't have anything significant on a given day, we can trade with smaller stops. And if we have something which is quite big or highly volatile, then we have to accommodate that with the way we trade and the stops that we play. So let's just get the calendar up here. Okay, so can you see the Forex calendar up? Someone could just let me know if it is. Okay, so it should be up now, yep. Okay, excellent. Okay, fine. So let's get the weekly fundamental assessment sheet. So this is the spreadsheet here, which we're going to plot on for this week. We'll just put that there. So the first thing that we can see, let me take this off for this week, put it over this side in fact. Is we do have today at 1:30 we have the US core durable goods orders, so we're going to put that in, and later on we have Draghi speaking in regards to the euro. Now he's speaking at the, as far as I'm aware, the central banking forum. So as you can see here, he is speaking at the Central Banking Forum, and this pretty much goes on throughout till tomorrow as well, and also later on in the week on Wednesday. So you can see we have a number of people speaking on Wednesday. We have Polos of the Canadian Bank. We have Draghi, Carney, and we also have Kuroda. So we've got Japanese, pound, euro, and CAD coming up on a Wednesday. Now, these could provide some volatility in those pairs. So we are going to put these down as major X's in the box. So let's just go back up. Let's get rid of this first. So we're going to start off with the capital X on the euro for today, and we're also going to have a small x for the core durable goods on the US dollar. Then tomorrow morning we have Draghi, we also have Carney and the Bank of England financial stability report. Now this is another thing which could provide quite a lot of volatility in regards to the pound. So tomorrow morning we will put down a large X for the pound, and we will also put down another large X for the euro. We have Gelin speaking later on. This is not at the Central Banking Forum, this is at a lecture. So I don't see this providing serious volatility, although it does have the potential to provide volatility. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this one down as a small x tomorrow for the US dollar, and we also have the consumer confidence, as you can see, tomorrow in the US dollar as well, so we put that down as a small x. Now if we go a little bit further down, we can see, as we just spoke about on Wednesday, we do have Polos, Draghi, Carney and Kuroda speaking. So We're going to put down 4 big X's for, I mean, this could pass without any serious volatility, but just on the basis that it could provide volatility, we're going to anticipate that. So we have Wednesday, we have another big X on the euro. We have the pound. We have the Japanese yen. And we also have the Canadian with polos. Now we're going to put down a small X as well because we do have crude oil inventories at 330, and we know that crude oil is not directly linked as such to the price of the Canadian dollar, because last week we saw crude oil, or the week before I think, crude oil going down, and we saw the Canadian dollar going up because of some fundamentals. But generally speaking, they are correlated, and if oil is going up, it will have a positive influence on the Canadian dollar, and if oil is declining, then that will conversely have a negative effect, generally speaking, on the Canadian dollar. So that's why with the crude oil inventories, although it says US dollar, we're going to put it down for the CAD. Now, if we scroll down a little bit, looking later on to the end of the week, you can see not a huge amount going on for the remainder of the week. We do have something fairly significant on Thursday, though, which is the final GDP. Now, that has a potential, especially if it comes out very divergent from the forecast, that has a potential to move the market. So we're going to put that down as a large X for the US dollar. On Thursday. And the unemployment claims which come out every week, generally speaking, that's not too much of an issue. So although it can provide volatility, we're just going to leave it off for today. It's not anything we're looking at being a major market move this week. We do have the current account coming out on Friday. So finally, we have a small X for the pound on Friday. And we also have the GDP for the CAD, which will go down as a small X, although this could be potentially quite big. In fact, I'm going to put this down as a large X because GDP, generally speaking, is one of the main indicators of economic health. So we will put that down as a larger X. So we're pretty much done here now with the weekly fundamental assessment. So we'll put down on Friday we have a small X on the pound, and we have a large X potentially on the CAD. So if we move this away now, and we have a look at the weekly fundamental assessment here, you can see, starting off from today, we have fairly potential volatility coming in on the euro between now and Wednesday. So what does that mean? Well, it means anything we want to get involved with. In fact, it's not coming out until about 6 o'clock this evening. And for those of the guys here who are in the live room each week, they will know we've looked to position ourselves into at least one euro pair this morning, because by the time that the Draghi speaking comes around at 6 o'clock tonight, there should be a nice place for the stock should be well covered. But until Wednesday passes, we have potential volatility in the euro. So we can be looking at, as a starter, with no real news coming out at the moment, although just bear in mind that the euro and the franc do generally work together and they affect each other. So if we see big moves in the euro, you'll probably see it affecting the franc as well, so just bear that in mind. But we can see straight away that we have the primary ones for taking small entries with small and tight stops. We have pretty much the franc all week, we have the Aussie all week, and we also have New Zealand. And we can see that CAD yen, pound yen today should be okay, and franc yen, Aussie yen, New Zealand yen, any of those trades we're looking to take should be fine as well up until Wednesday. Anything on the euro, on the US dollar should be considered not as, we don't need as wide a stop as we would do for, say, some of the euro pairs. We can still take fairly tight stops, but you don't want them too tight. So again, this is just an indication that if you're going into US dollar pairs, for example, and you have a stop based on the 15 minutes, you may get stopped out, when these news events come out. It's okay if you want to enter it early on and then the markets move, and then by the time they come out, you've got, say, a technical stop placed in the 4 hours by that point. That's fine. So that's what we're going to be looking at this week. That's how we're going to be looking at planning our trade. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over to the technicals, and we're going to have a look at some of the opportunities, potential opportunities that we're having a look at this week. So first of all, what we always do at the beginning of the week, we always have a look at the US dollar index, because the US dollar index is pretty much the king in the currency markets. And when you have US dollar going up, you'll have Euro, Pound, New Zealand, Aussie going down. And generally speaking, when you have US dollar index going down, you will have the Euro, the Pound, the Aussie, New Zealand pushing to the upside. So looking at the US dollar index, we can see that the US dollar index is in a range. And we were sitting here at the start of last week, and we were suspecting that we could get a move up until this area. We did get a move up to the top of the range, but unfortunately, I mean, last week was a tough week for trading because the markets barely moved. If you go and have a look at some of the weekly candles, you'll see there was hardly any volatility in the weekly candles, and if the markets don't move, it's very hard to get nice profits. But we have now traded into the top here on the US dollar index. So what we're now looking at is a bounce from the top of the range, and we're looking for a potential move back down to the range bottom here, because you can see it's moved up. When it broke here, it came down to this level, which is why we have a third line on here. When it broke back above here, it tried to come back up to the top, pulled back, broke up above, and so what we are now looking for is a reversal in this area. And a potential move, as long as it stays in the downtrend, you can start to create a down channel like this. So we're looking for a pullback in this area and then continuation to the downside, and we're looking for the 12-month rate in the US dollar index. So we do have a neutral bias on the US dollar index, generally speaking, a bearish to neutral bias. Why do I say that? Because we are still in a range, so this could go up like this, or it could go down. So we're looking potentially for declines down to the 12,148, but we're bearing in mind that it could also go up, so we're not going to get too focused on the US dollar index one way or the other, so we'll just trade the pairs on their own merit as we see them. Next, we're going to have a look at oil. As we know, we just spoke about, oil does affect the Canadian dollar. Now, oil is in a clear downtrend. You can see this from the very top here. So if we go back here all the way from the 25th of the 5th, you can see it has been making lower lows, lower highs, 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 lower lows, all the way down here. And now we're getting a correction here. So generally speaking, we would have a bearish bias on oil because it is in a downtrend, and we do roughly have a bearish bias on oil, but we have again a neutral bias because although we expect that this could come down and break below here and push a little bit lower, oil is actually sitting at a very significant support area at the 42,181. Now what that means is we could be getting a bounce from this area and we could start to get a breakout. So as long as we're below this level here, which is the 43.75, and we're in a downtrend, we'll be expecting a continuation down, maybe even a double bottom. In order to go bearish on the oil, we will need to see moves below the $42 a barrel, in which case we'll be looking down towards the 40.05 area. So again, if it was down here, we'll be going in with a bearish bias on oil, but because it's above the support level, but it's still in downtrend, we're going to stick with a neutral bias on oil. So again, we'll just be trading the pairs on their own merits, and we're not going to go in with a too hard or fast bias for the Canadian dollar or oil. So with that said, let's have a look at some of the opportunities that we're looking at for this week in the currency pairs. Now, one of the opportunities that we're looking at in the euro US dollar is this. You can see that euro US dollar is clearly in a range. Now, the range is denoted by the top of the range here at the 1.12600. And also the bottom here at the 1.11321. Now it came down to the bottom of the range last week and tested it, and as you can see, it actually broke the downward sloping trend line here, and it's starting to trend to the upside. So what we're looking for this week, And just bear in mind, we do have Draghi speaking later on at 6 o'clock, so that could provide the catalyst to push this to the upside if it's not going to be tomorrow. We're looking for a reversal pattern or a bullish formational pattern in this area here where it's sitting right now, and we're going to be looking to continue this up towards the 1.12600 in the top of the range. Now it is in an over uptrend, as you can see, so there is a chance that it could resolve itself to the upside and actually break out of the range. However, we're probably going to be a little bit more conservative with our targets this week, and we're going to be looking probably at taking profits at this level. And if we get the opportunity to get into this trade here and it goes up to the 1.260, we'll take our profits. And if it breaks out, we'll look for some accumulation above the range next week, and then we can look for some more trades to the upside in the euro US dollar. Now that would fit in nicely with a sell-off in the US dollar index if it comes. So if we get the sell-off in the US dollar index, we should see this coming back up to the top of the range this week. The next opportunity we're going to look at is the US dollar franc. Now the US dollar franc, as you can see, it is again in between two support and resistance areas. We have the top over here of the accumulation zone at the 97638, and we also have a bottom over here, as you can see, which is where it bounced from this morning. So if we get a move up into this area and a retest of downward sloping trend line up here, if we get some bearish formations and patterns in this area, then this is an area we're going to be looking at the top of the accumulation zone to take shorts, first of all down to the bottom of the range. But what we're going to be looking for is a breakout of this trend, because the overall move is to the downside. And if we get those patterns in this area on the lower time frames, we're going to be looking at taking this trade down to the 0.95860, which is the next key area of support on this pair. So if we do start to see the US dollar index turning to the downside and we start to see a sell-off in the US dollar franc, and just remember that the franc and the euro are connected, so if we have a strong euro and we have US dollar staying off, then you should see the US dollar franc coming to the downside, and the 0.95860 is our target this week on this pair. Now, if we go back, you can see as well, we don't have any franc. We don't really have franc pairs this week, so we're okay on the US dollar franc with the tight stops. And also, US dollar index, nothing really until Thursday, which is going to be considered as major news. So US dollar franc should be quite a nice one if it works out to get involved with this week. Now, similarly, Aussie franc, you can see we don't have anything for the Aussie or the franc for this week, so let's go and have a look at the Aussie franc. Now, Aussie franc is one that I'm looking at here from today. It wasn't in the weekly Forex forecast because things change. But what we're looking at in the Aussie franc is a potential move. Let's have a quick look at the daily. I can do this one actually from pretty much from scratch with you guys here. So you can see the Aussie franc has actually turned to the upside, and it is starting to test in the daily this downward sloping trend line. If it fails at this area here, we are going to be looking for a sell on the Aussie franc. Now, one thing to be careful with on the Aussie franc is we're going to first of all be looking down towards the 0.7250 area, because we may be getting a head and shoulders pattern like this, in which case it's a reversal pattern to the upside. So we are going to, if we initiate shorts in the Aussie franc, we are going to be using the 0.7250 as a management point on this pair. So we're going to see how it reacts at this, and then we'll decide whether to hold it for further moves to the downside and a continuation of this channel here. In which case we will be looking for an overall target down towards the double bottom over here on the Aussie franc. So if we get a turnaround in here, we're going to be looking down for the double bottom, but we are going to be looking at the 0.7250 as a management point. We don't really have any significant data coming out, as we've just seen, so we should be able to get a nice tight stop in place on the Aussie franc. Now, the next one we'll go and have a look at is the Aussie US dollar. So in the Aussie US dollar, you can see that we are looking, this was one from the weekly Forex forecast as well, and what we're looking for overall in the Aussie US dollar is this. Now it does look like it's starting to trend to the upside, and we've got a breakout in the daily of this downward sloping trend line like this, and you can see it's making higher highs and higher lows. So if we go to the 4-hour chart, just to get a bit of a better understanding of what we're looking at, we can have a look at, for those of you who know the wave counts, the Elliott wave counts, we can have a little look at the Elliott wave count. So what we might be looking at here is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're looking for a continuation up to the 0.7576584. That's the target to the upside and the next key area of resistance on the Aussie US dollar. Now, what we have first is, though, we do have what looks like an A, B, and a C, and it does look like we could have on this A, B, and a C a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what we're looking for this week on the Aussie US dollar, yes, we are looking for an overall move to the upside, but we are seeing that this could come down and retest the 0.7536 area down here first, completing the C wave. And then if it does that, this is going to be a good area to start looking for bullish formations and patterns in this area, possibly even a pullback down to the 0.75170, which is a significant area of support. Was resistance over here, broke, acted as a support here, and now it could come back down and test this level again as a support area. So overall, we're looking up to the 0.7658 to continue the trend. But just beware, we're looking for at least to move back down to the level bottom first, and then in these areas we're going to start looking for bullish formations and patterns to see if we can get a continuation of the overall move to the upside. So that's what we're looking for this week on the Aussie US dollar. The next one we're going to look at is the Euro Pound. Now the Euro Pound is in a kind of wedge pattern. So you can see prices getting squeezed quite hard here. And we are looking for a continuation of this move to the upside and a completion of the pattern that it's forming at the 0.88680. Now, it's in a position right now where, as we sit, where we could start seeing, and what we're expecting is now a move up from this area into this point up here. So we're going to be going down to the lower time frames later on this afternoon, and we're going to see if we can get on the lower time frames the bullish formations and patterns in this area. Good place to, I mean, we're not expecting this to really break out of this downward sloping, the upside trend line. We're looking for the wedge to resolve itself to the upside. So that in mind, just bear in mind we do have news coming out for the euro and also down tomorrow. So really, this is one. If we're going to have a look at weekly fundamental assessment, you can see here we have today we have the Draghi speaking about 6 o'clock, and then for the pound we'll start to get some really serious news or some major news coming out tomorrow for the pound. So how we want to play this week, we want to look to get involved early on today and to get our stops in position, so when Draghi starts to speak later on, we will have enough space between our entry and our stop loss. And we're going to be looking for either Draghi's speech to pass uneventfully, which will be fine, because then this should just carry on to the upside, or we're going to be looking for hopefully this to spark this as a catalyst and a push to the upside as well. So one final pair that we're going to look at, because we're looking at lots of different pairs this week, one final pair that we're going to look at is the Euro-Japanese Yen. Now, as you can see, the Japanese Yen does not have really any news apart from later on Wednesday, so we're fine for the Japanese Yen to get involved with today. Now, we do already have a position on this from this morning, and we are looking for a continuation of this move here. You can see we have a sideways formation like this, and we're looking for this move to continue to the upside like this. Now, we do have an intermediary target of 125.221, which we highlighted in the weekly forecast yesterday. However, we are looking for an overall move even further up to the 126 psychological area, which is a key level of resistance on this pair. So we're going to see how this reacts at this area here. We might get a little pullback into this area, in which case we could look to add again to the position on a pullback to the trend line. Or alternatively, what we're hoping for is a push up, maybe on Draghi speaking today, into this area here. We can look for some accumulation, and then we'll look for some more bullish formations and patterns in this area, and then we're going to look for it to come up to the 126, hopefully by the end of the week, but this could be a 2-week trade. So there's some of the opportunities that we're looking at. I mean, we've gone through the fundamental assessment. We've had a look at some of the opportunities for the targets. I don't think it's necessary each week to go through the news as often. I think you guys probably just want the meat and potatoes of what we're looking for this week, and then you can trade around using those as a guide. So that's all for the currency pairs that we're looking at for this week, or that's all for the webinar. Does anybody have any questions or any currency pairs they want me to have a look at, which maybe they're trading or maybe they're looking at this week? I'll be more than happy to go through it with you or explain anything if you're not sure. I can see Michael has raised his hand. So I think Michael might have a question. If you've got a question, Michael, just tap it in the box for me, and I'll get it answered for you. Oh, you did, okay. Excellent. So your first time in the room, is it, Michael? Okay, that's great. So what we're doing is we're basically just trying to give you guys something which you can use for this week. I mean, we don't go through too much really about who we are, but we actually have a live room, and some of the people in the room now are in the live room and they trade with us each week. But what we want to do is, even on a Monday, we want to give you something you can use. I know people have their own strategies and all this kind of stuff, so something that we're going to give you, and you can go and take it away each week and actually put to good use. So it doesn't look like there's any other questions there. I'll just give it let's give it another 15 seconds just in case somebody's typing, because I can't see if anybody's typing or not. I mean, if you have got any questions about anything at all regards trading, guys, now's the time, because I will do my best to answer them for you. It doesn't have to be just about the chart. I mean, it can be just generally anything you're not sure about, or anything you're wondering about, general trading principles, for example. Just give it another 10 seconds. Okay, so I can't see any questions coming through, guys, so that's going to be it for this week. We'll be back here next Monday, as always. Next Monday, don't forget, we will talk about it next Monday, but we have non-farm payrolls next week, so next week's one will probably be based around non-farm payrolls and trying to create a plan for trading non-farm payrolls next week. It's the first Friday of every month that non-farm payrolls comes through. So is there anything that you wanted to say, Ben, before we wrap up? Otherwise, I'll just wrap it up here.
Yeah, just like to take this opportunity to thank you, John, for another very informative webinar. As John mentioned there, we're going to be doing these every Monday, so if there are questions that you think of during the week, you can either email us, support@portexmarkets.com, you can hop over to ethicaltradinginstitute.com, or you can save them up for the following week. So pop in again on Monday next week and ask those questions then. Again, that's ethicaltradinginstitute.com. Michael, you mentioned there that you thought this was informative. If you'd like to continue that, go over there and take a look at the packages that they've got available. But yeah, I think that's about it, John.
Okay, excellent. Okay, well, thanks everyone. I'll see you all next week.
Thanks, John. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye all.